All right, how you doing, ladies and gents? Thank you all for tuning into this live stream. Let's get a quick audio and visual check as usual as we begin today's live stream. How are you all doing? Welcome. Don't know why I've blown up my camera. Let me put it back on the normal chart. Let's get straight into it. So, yeah, Bitcoin has been pushing the upside, although this little rally has now come to a temporary end for the first day since we started pumping up. We've seen a nice pullback here. It's not a big pullback, but it is something, and it's coming exactly on cue. Bitcoin has now set yet another fake out above the $45,000, $44,500 area of previous resistance. It still is resistance quite clearly, seeing as though Bitcoin has actually managed to drop down a little bit. It's quite interesting the circumstance within which Bitcoin is doing this, because the dollar is at a reading of 97.359 on the index here, and the last time the dollar had a reading like this was well, it was actually yesterday, but before that, the last real time that I want to draw your attention to was the 24th of February. And if we take a look at where Bitcoin was on the 24th of February, we're going to notice something quite interesting. 24th of February, Bitcoin was last over here, and crucially, if we go down onto the, if we zoom in even more, which I'm not going to do, just take my word for it, because if I did it, it would waste time, but just believe me on this. If we zoom in a little bit more, take a look at this wick right here that Bitcoin produced. When Bitcoin fell down to this area, to its low, that is precisely when the dollar was trading, or well, it wasn't trading, but when the dollar was around over here on this index. That's roughly, in fact, very, very accurately, actually, not even roughly, when Bitcoin was pushing its low. So now, to see that Bitcoin, I'm sorry, to see that the dollar index is at the very same level, but Bitcoin is many thousands of dollars higher, $6,000 higher, is a very, very interesting sign. You know, this actually just adds on top more evidence when I'm saying that this rally, to me, doesn't make sense. And you know what? I'm not even ashamed of saying that, because sometimes things like this just straight up don't make sense. And again, the last time I was warning you all about this kind of thing on this YouTube channel was when Bitcoin was in this rally right here. And when it was kind of consolidating over here as well, I was still talking about similar ideas. I didn't know exactly what I was warning you guys about, but I knew that there was something to warn you guys about. And again, I'm feeling something similar right here. The fact is, we're still in a really big area of resistance, and the war is still ongoing. I must provide a rebuttal to one of the main points that people are bringing up in this space at the moment, because I don't think I'd be using my platform properly. And by the way, those of you who are tuning into this live stream, do me a favor and just smash up the likes here if you haven't done so already. Let's get a couple more people in here, because the views are abysmal. I don't know what's up with the channel. Either I'm putting out shit content or YouTube hates me. It's one of the two. But when you guys do hit up the likes, it helps out so much. So please do, if you don't mind. You know, one of the common sentiments in this space right now is that, you know, Bitcoin has been rising up because of the Ukraine-Russia tensions, and you know, Ukrainians fleeing their country will want to hold Bitcoin instead of gold because it's more practical, which, I mean, these things are true, but realistically, how much volume is that actually going to push? And then even, you know, Russian oligarchs moving their funds into Bitcoin and so on. None of these arguments make good sense to me, purely because the tensions were ongoing kind of throughout February, and they, you know, it became pretty obvious. I mean, like, most rich people in Ukraine left, you know, while this was happening in the market, you know, kind of around the middle of February, right? I mean, the tensions were pretty obvious. Everyone and their nan, in terms of countries, was warning their citizens to get out of Ukraine. We knew things were getting bad. Maybe not this bad, but we knew things were getting bad. But we didn't see any reaction whatsoever with Bitcoin. And then again, to see what is the most violent upward candle in over a year, just 2 days ago? Pretty much, ladies and gents, in my opinion, pretty much coming out of nowhere. I'm not just going to brush that off like, oh yeah, it makes sense because there's a war going on. No, it doesn't make sense. And when we look at what's going on with the dollar, this is more reason to be concerned. There's actually something really big that I want to talk to you guys about with the dollar right now, which is actually either bullish or bearish, depending on how you look at it. But I want to, as usual, urge you guys with some warnings as well. Because while I'm not here to be bearish, I am here to be realistic. And unfortunately, many people, when they hear me being realistic, perceive it as me being bearish because they're so far up their own fucking ass that they can't see reality. Now that's totally fine if that's you, but it's not me. So that's why I take these approaches. And what I want to talk about with you guys with regards to the dollar, actually, I'm not going to get to that right now. I'll talk about Bitcoin for just a minute. I'll get to the dollar in a little bit because it is a huge idea. I want to wait for a couple more people to come in. So if you guys can, again, smash up the likes, I would really appreciate that. I can see many of you already have. So thank you all so much for doing so. I just want to give you guys some shorter term analysis right here, actually, because, Bitcoin has been finding resistance in exactly the range that we were expecting it to. It's actually pretty perfect how this happened. I mean, if we look at this on the 4-hour time frame and even on the 1-hour time frame, just take a look. I mean, it enters my resistance range that I didn't touch these yellow lines, by the way. They've been like this for a long time. Bitcoin falls into this resistance range and pretty quickly is encountering a problem. I mean, look at how nicely Bitcoin is able to rise before it enters the range between these two yellow lines. And as soon as it enters these two yellow lines, Bitcoin's struggling. Bitcoin is struggling. It's actually overall trending upward a little bit, which in most markets is a bearish sign, but in Bitcoin is generally a bullish sign. So do keep that in mind. Although if we take a look at what happened the last time that Bitcoin was at these levels, we did form a very similar pattern of slowly moving up, and actually it ended up breaking down. That's not to say that it would break down again, but I'm just putting it on your radar that we're not doing anything super different to what happened last time yet, but that's not really too worrying for me anyway in the short-term chart, purely because having a third attempt in the first place is a very good sign for the bulls. The fact that Bitcoin has been able to tackle this area again for a third time after a little bit of a time break, and after setting what looks to me like a pretty good pattern of setting higher lows or even a double bottom. And if this is indeed a double bottom, I mean, it's somewhat open to interpretation because Bitcoin did fall a couple percentage points below, 4 percentage points below this previous low, this most recent low. It fell a little bit below on the first swing down, but I mean, I'm still happy to call this a double bottom, to be honest. I don't want to get caught up in a 4% move and say that invalidates what looks to be a very bullish setup. I still think that stuff is there, and so one of the key ideas I brought across to you guys is that if Bitcoin does fall down into the very low $40,000 range again, I'm talking about 41, 40,000 and so on, I am going to expect Bitcoin to find support. The last time I said that, Bitcoin did find support, but obviously it didn't take Bitcoin very high. I don't know if we'd see a similar reaction this time, kind of topping out at the same level again and then tumbling down. That would be very unlikely in my opinion. If we did find support, I would expect that this time Bitcoin would have a much more serious chance at breaking resistance if it gets there again, just because this would now be the 4th time. If Bitcoin fell down and tackled this resistance area again, it would now be the 4th time that we'd be tackling this area as resistance since dropping below it. And to me, again, that is a really positive sign for the bulls. The short-term chart is with the bulls right now, in my opinion. Even the mid-term chart really starting to look like, and to me, mid-term time frame is kind of everything that's happened since this low was set, is actually looking pretty good. I mean, bottom line, let's just break down what we are seeing here. Oh, one of my Bitcoin charts has gone missing. What is this? One sec. Let me, one of my Bitcoin charts has gone missing. This is a problem. Which one? Oh, it's the Coinbase chart. Let me just add that back in. 1 second. Bitcoin USD, Coinbase. Sorry about that. I have a very, very big watch list, as you could see. Let me just get that back in there. Perfect. There we go. As you can see with this trend right here, you know, Bitcoin finding resistance kind of, let's just draw a box to say like this is a resistance zone, but also finding a pattern of higher lows. This is actually the beginning of an ascending triangle pattern. That's not to say that Bitcoin is indeed forming an ascending triangle, but it is to say that, I mean, like generally patterns like this, the language of these kind of patterns where we're hitting the same ceiling, but our lows are getting higher, the language of those patterns is bullish. You know, it will paint bullish things. And this being an ascending triangle, obviously, is very, very bullish. They generally do break out to the upside for Bitcoin, in my opinion. I'm sorry, in my experience. There's probably a few more ways you could draw it, something a little bit like this if you want to ignore the crazy wicks, but it's still an ascending triangle, which is to say that even if Bitcoin does fall massively lower from here, you know, it is in a bullish pattern when we look at everything that's happened kind of from the 22nd of January and onwards, which is now over a month ago. So, you know, maybe that is enough time. I'm not saying it is, but maybe it is, you know, enough time. And so if Bitcoin does manage to, you know, continue punching above, and especially if it, like I said, you know, one of the key things I mentioned since Bitcoin was punching back up to these levels is that the daily time frame is very important to me. You know, I want to see Bitcoin closing basically above this price action right here on the daily time frame, and I want to see it with some significance. I mean, none of these closes are significant enough in my opinion. Let me actually just budge the line up a little bit to the wick, just to this wick right here. You know, none of these closes are significant enough. You might even argue that they're not even high enough apart from this one right here. And so I want to see a more significant daily close above this yellow line, and ideally above the yellow line by 1 to 3 percentage points. You know, not a little bit. You know, like previously over here, Bitcoin managed to get above the yellow line on this high right here by about 0.3, 0.4%. I want to see Bitcoin stretching either 1% above or 3% above ideally, which would put it towards the high $45,000 range. And that to me would tell me that actually that's a confirmed breakout. If we do get the confirmed breakout, just looking at nothing but this chart, I would expect a fairly easy rise for Bitcoin up into the high 40, low 50K range, as I've been mentioning to those of you who are subscribed to this YouTube channel and showing your support on this channel as well. Thank you so much, by the way, to those of you who have actually gone ahead and hit up the likes. The views have shot up already. So it's just more evidence, really, that the interactions do actually tell YouTube to blast the video out to people who do indeed want to watch them. But yes, what we do have here, I think, is a potential, you know, for a blue sky breakout. The only thing to me that makes this quite challenging is, again, just the fact that there is a huge Ichimoku cloud offering resistance to Bitcoin right now. And I've said this before, but I wouldn't want to brush something like this off so easily. I do think that these are quite important. I do think that these can actually be quite problematic for Bitcoin in markets like this, considering we have been in a downtrend for a long time. I mean, at the very least, it might not mean that we, you know, completely fall down to new lows, but it absolutely could mean that we struggle to break areas like this, which directly contradicts with the analysis I gave you a little bit earlier. So that's all to say that, you know, even if we do get that kind of blue sky breakout, I am still going to be urging a little bit more hesitance. And again, you know, I mean, we can see this with the sentiment readings, right? I mean, yesterday we had a reading of 51. Today we're still in quite neutral territories with a reading of 52. The fear and greed index very much still showing it as a huge jump up in sentiment in one day. That is not normal, right? And it's been like, we've had this big change in sentiment from not that much price action, in my opinion, and I showed you guys why in yesterday's content, so make sure you do go back and check that out if you're interested. But to me, what the star of the show is, just for this live stream, is actually the dollar. And so I want to talk to you guys about that in for just a minute. Thank you guys so much, by the way, for showing all your support in the comments. I'm gonna start reading through these in just a minute, so bear with me. And if you do have questions, then do feel free to drop them in the comments. And as usual, just make sure that you are tagging me by writing the @ symbol, you know, like with your email address, writing the @ symbol, followed by my YouTube channel name, 𝗬𝗎𝗓𝗠𝗖𝗓. It should autofill, and then write your comment, and I will go through your questions that way. The dollar is the star of the show, though. I want to point out something huge to you guys, which, you know, I mean, a fair few people have noticed, but it doesn't seem like everyone is paying attention to this in equal ways. I don't want to delete these lines. I'm wondering if there's another dollar index I can look at. Is this the same thing? It looks to be more or less the same. I've never used this one before, but it should be okay. Let me just make sure I've got the right data. Yes, I do. And really, all I want to do is kind of look at this downward sloping resistance line. There's a few different ways to draw it. I can draw it from candles, which might make a little bit more sense. Or I can draw it from the wicks, as I did a few seconds ago, something a little bit like this. Bottom line, there is this area of resistance, and we're either at it or very close to it right now with the dollar. Just to put this in perspective, this is only a 2% move away from the other upper red line. So they're both pretty close. Obviously, one of them we're at right now. And the whole idea here is actually, if I just remove this line, because it's making things a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. And actually, you know what? My favorite way to represent slightly ambiguous zones like this is actually to use the parallel channel tool and just drag this out and show you that this whole channel is a resistance zone for the dollar. It has been going, I mean, you can't really analyze the dollar index. I want to make this point clear to you guys as I get in here. You know, one of my jobs as an analyst is to provide analysis, but then poke holes in my own analysis, right? Other people are going to poke holes in my analysis, as you must. This is a platform with free speech, so obviously it's very important to be able to, you know, poke holes in an analysis like this, but also I need to do it myself, because that, you know, helps me make sure that I'm putting my best foot forward every time I make a decision. And obviously this is what translates into trade setups and stuff like that, which I'm posting inside of 𝗪𝗡's VIP, which you can join by following these steps on screen right here. But you know, this this shows us something very, very significant. If we take a look at this on the weekly time frame, and see what's been going on over here, one of the things you'll notice is that if I drop a horizontal line at each of these major tops with the dollar, and then another one right now, the dollar usually, yeah, has dropped quite massively after hitting this resistance area, ever since basically 2016. And the reason that's important is that if we put this side by side with Bitcoin's chart, you'll notice something critical. Which is that, and we'll put this on the weekly time frame as well, switch it onto the logarithmic chart. I'm just going to hide my face cam so you can see this chart easier. If we look at what's going on with the dollar, and we've really zoomed out with Bitcoin now, if I just bring my crosshair right here, you're going to notice something very interesting. At the same time that the dollar peaks, just look at the left side of the screen right here. At the same time that the dollar peaks, Bitcoin really starts going very, 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 very crazy. And if I add a few more red lines here, you're going to start to see how significant this is, because you see when the dollar actually bottoms out as well, that's generally where Bitcoin tops out, or somewhere nearby, right? So take a look at this right here, and take a look at this right here. Just, you know, showing us these red lines, showing us some of the key reversal points that the dollar has had over these past years, and how that reflects with Bitcoin. So the first one showing us when the dollar tops out, at that same time Bitcoin rallying up quite nicely. You're seeing where this is going now. The next one, Bitcoin tops out around over here, and again, looking at the left side of the screen with my crosshair, you'll see that that's roughly where the dollar bottomed out. And so as the dollar starts to rally up again, Bitcoin struggles a lot, right? And it struggles for a long time, up until the March coronavirus market crash of 2020, which is when the dollar, again, looking at the left side of the screen now, where the dollar starts to collapse in this index. And that's what paves the way for Bitcoin to absolutely blow up until the dollar bottoms out again. And when the dollar starts rallying up, that's precisely when all the fun stops for Bitcoin. And Bitcoin trades massively lower and barely higher and massively lower again. It's coiling up, by the way. I mean, this is a classic pattern for a huge breakout. That's one of the reasons why, I mean, you know, long term, you guys have kept hearing me say the same thing, why I'm so positive about Bitcoin actually being in a very, very bullish place. But here's the thing, is that we are at this resistance zone again. And if the dollar breaks it, we could be looking at a big, big breakout for the dollar. We could be looking at something quite large, which could be very, very problematic for the dollar. And I don't want you guys to be ignoring such a sign like that. You know, I think that if we do break out, the dollar would probably rally quite hard. There's a lot of real world factors that show us that should probably happen. You know, one of the key reasons I'm seeing for why the dollar has risen up so high, bearing in mind that this is an index, is that you know, other currencies like the ruble, for example, have collapsed. Take a look at the ruble. The Russian ruble against the dollar has skyrocketed in terms of inflation up to you know, whereas previously, let's just say, I mean, last month in January, you would have needed you know, anywhere between kind of 70 to 75 rubles to buy $1. It jumped up to a high of 120. So I mean, nearly halving in value. I mean, that's a huge drop there. And now you need 100, so still way weaker than it was before. And again, that to me is an indication that yeah, I mean, you know, obviously when things like this are happening with other currencies, the dollar will start to look stronger. And again, I mean, you know, this doesn't have to be a total doomsday scenario for Bitcoin, because at the end of the day, it is at resistance. And yeah, the past 2 times that the dollar actually hit this resistance area, it did great things for Bitcoin. So it could actually be paving the way for Bitcoin to blow up again. Now, I don't want to take an opinion on this, because I know that those of you who perhaps haven't thought so deeply about this are going to be getting very excited that the dollar might collapse. But I want to take this moment again, just, you know, being a YouTuber, I feel certain things, having such a large channel, that I have a social responsibility to say. And one of them is that the dollar collapsing is not actually a good thing. I mean, yes, you would probably get richer if you hold Bitcoin. That's generally how it's gone over the years. But the dollar getting weaker means the people of the United States are getting weaker, are getting poorer. And that means the world is probably generally in a lot of ways going to feel that hurt as well. So I know a lot of Bitcoiners get very excited talking about the dollar collapsing, but it is, in my opinion, a literal psychopathic wet dream. It is, I mean, if you really think about it, and if you still parade the idea of the dollar dropping down to 0, that to me is a straight psychopath level idea. Because you're basically saying you want other people to suffer for you to make money. So I'm just putting it out there. It doesn't really affect the technical analysis, but a lot of people don't think about these things. And by the way, this is one of the reasons that I don't believe Bitcoin will hit $10 million in any reasonable future, because if it did hit $10 million, just take a second to imagine where this dollar index would be. You know, I mean, the dollar would drop very, very low, I would imagine. You know, if Bitcoin were at some ridiculous price level like $10 million, and there would be so much disgusting widespread poverty. Not to say that poverty is disgusting, but like, it would be horrendous how much poverty there would be. It would be so sad and dangerous. The world would not be the same. So yes, you may have a $10 million Bitcoin, but you'd have nowhere to spend it because the whole world would be on fire. So again, not relevant to the analysis, but I just figured I'd highlight it. The real star of this show is the fact that the dollar is actually at this resistance area, where previously when the dollar was around these areas, it did get very, very fun for Bitcoin. Things did start to really look very, very good for Bitcoin as the dollar was dropping. We saw very nice rises for Bitcoin, and we could be in for something similar again right now. So I wanted to put this on your radar. I think that this is the single biggest factor at play right now, and to me, that's why I had to highlight this and bring it to your attention. If we do start to see a rapid descent, and you know, it is fairly quick. I mean, we are looking at the weekly time frame to be fair, but this would have some significant development, I would imagine, by the end of April. So I mean, only about 8 weeks from now. I know that probably sounds like a lot of time, but 8 weeks for, you know, the US dollar, which, you know, obviously has price history going back for many decades. Not on this chart, but it does. You know, 8 weeks is not a long time. It's actually pretty quick. You know, I would certainly be taking that pretty seriously, and so that's why I think that this is well worth paying attention to right now. Because if you look at where Bitcoin is at the very same time, and actually just kind of zoom out, if we just look at, you know, these key points in the market, I mean, you know, generally Bitcoin, these resistance areas, you know, generally Bitcoin was at quite pivotal moments where it made a lot of sense for Bitcoin to start trending higher. I mean, this one, there's a little bit of a question mark. I don't think there was anything pivotal about Bitcoin being over here, but you can see that things got really crazy. Not necessarily on the logarithmic time frame, but if we look at this, if I just put this same circle here and move us back to the linear chart, you can see that, yeah, I mean, things got pretty fucking crazy directly after this well, where that circle was drawn, and then again right here, right? I mean, things got pretty crazy directly after this circle. I don't even need to change the chart, but you can see it right here as well. Directly after that circle, I mean, the chart just blows up to astronomical levels. And so you know, we're kind of, I think we have the setup for something like that again right now. Just seeing as though Bitcoin has formed the same hideous you know, basically 50% or more correction the second time in a row now. To me, if there was any setup that would, you know, finally tell us that, okay, we've suffered enough pain, it's probably this one. You know, and this is the thing, is that this, like, you're gonna see different bits of analysis on different time frames, right? Like, my super long-term analysis is obviously super bullish on Bitcoin, but with the warning that, you know, at the same time that we're at a resistance area, this is the dollar we're talking about. This is almost more of a political question. If you think the dollar is going to get stronger compared to other, I'm not saying the dollar is going to be strong. I'm saying that it's going to be stronger than other currencies, which to me is a very, very realistic argument at the current, you know, and I'm not an economist by any measure, but I'm just giving you guys my opinion. That's why you're here. You know, if the dollar is indeed going to shoot up, I can't see that being a good thing for Bitcoin. But if it's going to respond to resistance, as it usually has done over these last years, well, only on 2 occasions, so it's not enough to see a very real trend, but it's still, you know, something we can notice, well, then yes, I mean, we would be looking at quite a nice setup for Bitcoin to potentially shoot up and trade at some very, very nice levels. And so obviously that can make things quite exciting, but like I said, I mean, this is going to vary depending on the time frame, because if I move us back to the Bitcoin chart now and just talk to you guys about what I'm seeing, for example, here on the daily time frame, you know, I mean, the daily trend is still pretty bad, right? The daily trend to me is just showing us trading down and now in some capacity pausing that trend, and you know, when we zoom in even further, we can start to see that actually you know, we're forming some nice reversal patterns. You know, we formed the double bottom, and we're punching resistance, and we're really trying to break above. You know, right now Bitcoin actually, just as I speak, taking a little tumble lower, you know, potentially down to the bottom area of the support at 43. If it does fail this, again, I'm looking at the very low 40k range, 40, 40.5, 41, you know, those kind of price areas for me are the next interesting ones. You know, but this is the thing, is that, you know, like with these short-term charts, it's actually pretty bullish. With you know, with a more zoomed out chart, still fairly bearish, and when you zoom out even more, it becomes bullish again. And that's just what happens on different time frames, right? Because different time frames show us different pieces of the trend, and the job of an analyst, and more importantly the job of a trader, is to be able to piece those together and then draw a conclusion, staying as objective as possible. Objective meaning, for those of you who are foreign viewers, basically means without putting your opinion in it. I don't know how to define objective, actually. Let me just, this is a very important word. We got to get this one right. What does objective mean? It means not being influenced by your personal feelings. Yeah, that's basically what I said, or opinions. You know, and so we need to be as objective as possible until we're not. And then at the very end, we need to be completely subjective and completely polarized to one side, because we've considered everything as objectively as possible. We have as much real, genuine information as we could possibly have. Now we can make an informed decision and start putting money behind an idea. And obviously that's where things get very, very exciting, because that's where you stand to make or lose money. So that to me is a very, very important point. If you found that analysis interesting, then do me a favor as you're in this live stream right now and smash up the likes. Also make sure you are subscribed if you haven't done so already, to make sure that you don't miss out on this content, because we're putting it out very, very regularly. Many of you guys watch this channel and are not already subscribed, which is totally fine once or twice, but if you do plan on watching this channel more often, YouTube is not going to recommend this content to you if you don't subscribe. So definitely make sure that that you do, so that you don't miss this content in the long term. And I want to go through a couple of your questions now before I carry on with my notes and my core analysis. So if you do have your questions, again, make sure you drop them down by typing in @SammyLoyal with the @ symbol, like with an email address, so that I do see your comment highlighted to me. So I saw an interesting one right here. NJ mentioning buy the invasion makes a lot of sense, which is almost obviously quite a sarcastic comment, saying that it doesn't make sense to buy a speculative asset, which is what Bitcoin is, when there is an invasion happening in the real world, which is catching all news headlines. It's just generally not a time that you would want to take more risk on in markets, because the world seems unstable. You know, there's a threat of World War III looming over our heads, and obviously that's probably not going to happen. But bottom line, there is more uncertainty now than there was, you know, a week ago. And when that uncertainty first did come in, Bitcoin dropped down very hard. When the uncertainty of the pandemic came in, Bitcoin fell through the fucking floor. You know, a lot of people want to say that Bitcoin is a safe haven. It's not. Bitcoin falls massively at times of panic, and this is one of them, you know. And so to randomly start pumping up to, this is the thing, you see, you know, if there was actually, let's say if Bitcoin, here's an interesting question for you guys, and this is going to completely prove why I don't want to go outright and just say I'm correct, but why I have such a strong opinion on this is that if this tension in Ukraine was solved right now, you know, and Russia left and everything was fine, and somehow all the civilians that died got their lives back and so on, and just all the damage was totally erased right now, there would probably be less tension in the world. And then if Bitcoin were to suddenly dump, with the biggest dump that we've seen in over a year, a lot of you guys would be scratching your heads, screaming out manipulation, saying that this is crazy and not realistic. And my argument is, why aren't you saying that if Bitcoin pumps? Now, obviously, it's very clear. It's because most of you are just way too invested in this market, and so you can't retain objectivity. And shit, I mean, it's a bad place to be. So hopefully you can recognize if you fall into that category. And the likelihood is, you know, if you didn't instantly think what I just said, then yeah, it probably is something similar to that. You know, a lot of people just wouldn't question it if there is a pump, but they certainly would question it, and they'd be crying their bloody eyes out if the same thing happened to the downside, where it makes a lot more sense actually that Bitcoin is able to rise, but it doesn't, and instead it dumps massively. That's where people start screaming market manipulation. Nobody's doing it with this move right here, but what is happening is that sentiment is jumping up from extreme fear readings of 20 to completely neutral readings of 51 and 52. I'm just saying, man, like this is the exact same scenario in opposite, and to me that is a warning shot fired, to quote 𝗙𝗙𝗏𝗏. That is a massive red flag, and people just don't want to pay attention to it. You know, that's why I have to bring this. Look, I don't want to sit here and just be the bearer of bad news, but unfortunately, realistic TA isn't like roses and sunshine like a lot of you hippies want to believe it is. Like, realistic TA is annoying. Like, it's straight up annoying sometimes. It's scary sometimes. It's uncomfortable. That's what the truth is. It's uncomfortable. We're not here to just talk about how, if you want to hear that everything is fine, you already know the deal. Get the fuck off the channel. Go find some other shit-munching YouTuber that'll just tell you what they want to hear. I'm sorry, what you want to hear, because you ain't going to find it here, right? This is a much more realistic channel where we're actually, like, seriously concerned about what's going to happen with our money so that we can genuinely grow it. We can actually, like, grow it in a more predictable way where we're not just buying complete shit coins like SafeMoon or, like, Shiba Remember Shiba? Of course. You know, channels like that, coins like that. This is about putting in reproducible steps for sustainable growth on our accounts in the long term. That's what this YouTube channel is about. That's what I aim to put forward inside of VIP. You know, like I said, my most recent trade actually didn't go to plan. I did lose a little bit of money, but it's still... One second, guys. I've got my protein shake at the door. He's probably going to ring the doorbell in a second. But yeah, I mean, you know, we still do have... No, lost my train of thought. One sec, guys. I had my gym session super late, and that means now pushing midnight. I need to have my protein shake very, very late as well. So I'm probably not going to sleep anytime soon. But yeah, very, very important notes that that I wanted to highlight to you guys. Anyway, let me start going through the questions now, because I know that there's quite a few in the comments. Couldn't this be the time? Couldn't this be the start to a time-related correction after a huge spike up? Well, to answer that question, let's take a look at the 𝗪𝗪𝗔𝗟 MRI indicator. That's not the MRI. 4-hour time frame. If we take a look at this, let's wait for it to load. Yeah, so there was a 1 right here indicating that, yeah, you know, for time-based analysis, it's probably, you know, come to an end, and that, yeah, potentially indicating that Bitcoin could enter a reversal or a correction. It seems to be correcting right now, so, yeah, I mean, it doesn't need to correct very far. I mean, it could only, yeah, drop. I mean, yeah, I mean, it makes sense not only from time, but also, I think, more importantly, from price-based analysis that this thing does reverse. Daily time frame not really showing anything. Yeah, kind of, I guess, is my answer to that. Kind of. Let's see what other questions we have here. Good time to buy altcoins and dollar cost average. Something weird's going on with my protein shake delivery. Good time to buy altcoins and dollar cost average into Bitcoin. You know, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a good time to buy altcoins because I'm quite skeptical about Bitcoin at the moment. Although dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin does sound like a great idea to me. It's just that, you know, like, generally, if Bitcoin is going to keep dropping, for every 1% Bitcoin drops, your standard shitcoin is probably going to drop by like 2%. You know, I mean, those numbers probably aren't accurate, but the general idea there is, you know, which is that altcoins will generally drop harder than Bitcoin. So, I mean, it depends on if you're bullish on them. If you really want to get in and you don't really want to wait, you don't want to potentially miss any trains, then actually, yeah, it would be a good time. I mean, you know, bottom line, most altcoins are down massively from their all-time highs, right? So it is a good time by that measure. You know, it might not feel like it, but that's exactly why it is. You know, for me, I'm happy to wait a little bit longer. You guys know the deal. Like, I'm way more bullish on Ethereum and have been for a long time than I am on Bitcoin. But, you know, I'm still waiting to buy my Ethereum because I think it's going to come down a little bit lower against Bitcoin. So that to me is a very, very important thing to be considering. Sammy, been watching 𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗜, very straightforward dude. Thanks for the recommendation. You're very welcome. No problem. No problem. Psychopaths run the world. Yes, they do. But I mean, I just, yeah, I had to highlight that thing with regards to the dollar. There's a W pattern forming on the 4-hour. Yeah, so this person here, Christopher, mentioning this pattern right here. A W pattern is just another way of saying double bottom. So yeah, it's a very, very bullish pattern. I wish I could give you more than one like. Wow, thank you. That comment alone is enough, man. Thank you so much. That's such a nice thing to say. There's not enough like genuinely nice things that that YouTubers hear. Like, I'm speaking from my perspective, but I know about the other guys as well. Like we hear a lot of shit, and a lot of the time it's not that nice. So thank you, man. This dollar, no, that's a lie. Actually, it's mostly positive. No, just thinking about it, it is mostly positive. It's just that it's very easy to focus on the negative. So my bad. I actually completely redact that statement. I take that back. Do you think the alts will follow Bitcoin's move? Why haven't they pumped as hard yet? That's a good question. Why haven't they pumped as hard? Well, generally, when Bitcoin's in a bear market, you see, and it starts rallying up, altcoins only rally when Bitcoin moves up and then stabilizes. That's generally when we see altcoins blowing up. So we haven't really seen that and then stabilizes thing happen yet. I think if we do see that, that's when we could see altcoins really starting to lift off. For now, it's almost like, you know, because bottom line, let's actually break this down. Let me answer your question by you know, talking about the psychology of the market for a minute. You know, people are generally going to be a lot more interested in altcoins when they're ready to take on more risk, and they're only going to be ready to take on more risk when they've already made money, when the market is optimistic. You know, that's why people enter Bitcoin after, you know, the stock market rallies, is that you know, they've made a lot of money in the stock market, and then they want to take on a little bit more risk because they're feeling greedy, so they enter Bitcoin. It's the same thing where Bitcoin holders will enter. What have I done? Oh shit, this is bad. Can you guys hear me? Just messed up my. Give me a quick audio visual check. Should be okay. I've just messed up my setting, my setup temporarily. But yeah, I mean, you know, generally that's when we'd see altcoins moving up, is when people are feeling optimistic. And I think understandably it is going to be a little bit hard to feel optimistic about the market just at the moment, because of how low the market has dropped overall. And so to me, that is definitely some cause for concern. Thank you. And so I am going to be, you know, looking for, you know, some, you know, kind of healthy consolidation, something to just settle into people's minds that actually this market could be in a good place, that actually, you know, we are recovering. You know, when people really start believing those things is when we tend to see money flowing into altcoins. It's happened with some coins like Luna, which, by the way, I was mentioning would find resistance at this. No, it's not this box. It was a different chart I was looking at. It was this chart. I mentioned it would find resistance here. It didn't, but it did find support here. So that's interesting. And it is actually coming back down to the support area potentially. If it fails this kind of diagonal support line, which I've crudely drawn, it would probably fall down to this support area. So, you know, I mean, there are some exceptions, but broadly speaking, yeah, the altcoin market just hasn't really been able to hold up. Hasn't actually been able to do very well. Let's see what else we have here in the comments today. Got a lot of questions. I'm going to be blazing through them and then get right back to my core analysis in just a moment. This is so sweet. My Ichimoku settings are 20, 60, 120, 30. And why do I use those settings? They're in that order. Why do I use those settings? Because they have been tailored for the crypto markets, which are 24/7. This dollar thing is interesting. Is there a similarity if we look at the euro? Good question. Let's take a look at the euro. Is there a euro index? Guys, if there's a euro index, can you just let me know in the comments? Because I don't think there is. Because I'm looking at the dollar index. The only way to look at the euro equivalent. Oh, here it is. Yeah, there's not enough price history on this. There's a Japanese yen, but that's also pepperstone, so it's not going to have enough history. Yeah, I don't see a euro index, so I couldn't answer that question for you, unfortunately. What do I think of Elrond? No opinion. I have a good voice for ebooks. Thank you very much. I actually did record a few ebooks. A few audiobooks. I used to desire to be a voice actor. Didn't really follow through with it, but I did dabble a little bit. It looks like ETH is in a bearish triangle pattern with a descending resistance and flat. That is a very complicated comment. Let me just see if I can see what you're talking about. Can you actually, if you're talking about patterns you want me to look at, please give me the time frame as well, because otherwise I won't see it. Did I trade Luna after all? No, I didn't. I didn't feel it was safe enough, and I'm glad that I didn't, because I would have lost money if I did. Thanks for answering my question. You're very, very welcome. Could it be a massive bear flag on the daily time frame? So, Agostino is asking, could Bitcoin on the daily time frame with this pattern right here, like basically what's going on here, could this be a massive bear flag? Absolutely, yes, I think it could be. But at the moment, to me, this is actually leaning towards more of a rising wedge, which is also pretty much the same thing. Still a pretty bearish pattern. Just showing us that basically overall the market is, you know, kind of slowly moving higher before getting ready to grind down again. This would be brutal if it was. It would be huge, because the way you measure you know, the kind of targets for these kind of patterns, right, is if you actually hang on, let me move this chart up. You would draw the bear flag, which would look something a little bit like this, and then you would have to get the flagpole. I mean, this is a rising wedge, but I'll call it a bear flag for simplicity. You'd have to draw the flagpole, and in this case, the flagpole is fucking huge. It's probably actually too big. It would probably take Bitcoin into the negatives, because if we look at the breakout point, that would put Bitcoin all the way down at $2,400. So there's Fourfly saying Bitcoin's got a 2.4K target live on video. But no, it's just too large of a bear flag. It's just way too big. I mean, maybe the breakout point is a little bit earlier, but that still actually means that the target is lower. That puts us in the negatives, actually. So, I mean, we don't need to follow this kind of flagpole extension, by the way. It definitely doesn't need to go that way, but I'm just saying, I mean, it's almost too big, in my opinion. Like, Bitcoin is still not that mature to where it's going to form such large patterns. In my opinion, in my experience, it just doesn't form such huge patterns like that. Cool. So I've answered actually all of your questions. Let me actually, I mean, there's a few questions asking me to look at some random shitcoins, but obviously I'll ignore those. I want to go back to my notes and talk to you guys a little bit more about what I'm seeing here with this chart. I've actually, no, I've gone through everything, actually. Bear with me one sec. Oh yeah, so one of the other things I'd like to bring to your attention is that, you know, the last time that Bitcoin was in this kind of resistance range, Bitcoin was able to hang around here for quite a while. You know, if we just calculate this, Bitcoin spent over here 4 days plus a further 2.5 days, and so far we're up to yeah, just coming onto the second day right now. So you know, Bitcoin was able to spend about, you know, 6 days in total within this resistance range, and it still dropped down, which is to say that, I mean, you know, you could expect that, like, even though Bitcoin is able to hold this level, that it's not actually that good of a sign. Now, to me, like I said, this time is different because, you know, previously we didn't have a double bottom. And you know, this is now also the third attempt at the same resistance area. So to me, the likelihood of a breakout has gotten higher. I actually think it's high enough to where I'd seriously entertain the idea right now, especially if Bitcoin does dip down over here to capture a little bit more support. I think that would scare a lot of people back into being bearish. You know, one of the things that we're seeing with these kind of swings in the market, you know, the way these markets operate is that they're going to have these catastrophic sell-offs from levels like 60K. People will sell their Bitcoin down at lows like right here. I mean, you know, there is a reason that if you look at the volume spikes here, that volume spikes up a lot. You know, it means that a lot of people were selling their Bitcoin around these kind of areas. And then they'd be buying it back on highs like this and selling it again on lows like this and buying it back on highs like this. And then these idiots think they're smart by selling it if Bitcoin only falls down here, but that's what would make this the perfect support area for Bitcoin to then actually finally catapult itself higher and break out into the high $40,000 range. I'm not saying I'm not saying that, oh, one of the shitcoin guys got upset that I didn't. He says he's leaving now. Bless him. That I didn't answer his question. He must be new here. I mean, we don't do shitcoins on this channel, bro. Sorry about that. Yeah. I mean, you know, my only concern with all of this again is that on the daily time frame, this massively conflicts with the Ichimoku cloud, and I just couldn't not take that seriously. You know what I mean? Like that to me is a big deal. So still got to point that out to you guys right here in this video. Let's see what other questions we have here. Actually, no, let me check my analysis. Oh yeah, here's a big one actually. One sec. How did I miss this? This is a big point that I need to talk to you guys about. This protein shake is difficult to drink. It is, it's got like 50 grams of protein in it, 2 scoops of whey. It is difficult to drink this. It's actually this, no, I've got this pattern painted here, haven't I? Yeah, it's this pattern right here, where in the long term, Bitcoin's actually in quite a nice parallel channel, coming off our previous all-time high from 2017, which also lines up with the weekly time frame. If there's anything that pretty much to me guarantees that Bitcoin is in a really good place on the very long-term chart, it's this right here. Seeing that we've actually got quite a nice pattern of finding support along this parallel channel, and there's weekly Ichimoku support here, which is the first time that we've had weekly Ichimoku support in some real capacity. Maybe ever? One sec, let me check. No, we had real Ichimoku support. Real depends how you define it, but I mean this is the most substantial Ichimoku support we've ever had on the weekly time frame. This is the BLX chart, so it is the it's the chart with the most history that I know of on TradingView, which goes all the way back to 2010, and yeah, I mean we've never seen such a big Ichimoku cloud other than right now, and Bitcoin is actually finding support on it. This is a big deal. It doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't still drop back down. I mean, it is the weekly time frame, but yeah, I think it was certainly worth taking a look at this, especially seeing as though we're still in line with this parallel channel, which is one of the things that can give us some really exciting targets, like 70K or a breakout, which would be ridiculously high. It, could take Bitcoin many tens of thousands of dollars higher. So that is definitely worth keeping in line, in my opinion. Keeping in mind, in my opinion. But that's it. That's actually all of my notes. So I'm going to do one more round of questions, and then I'm going to head off for this live stream. If you have enjoyed this one so far, then do me a favor and smash up the likes, tick the bell, subscribe, do all that good stuff. If you want to jump inside of VIP, bam, steps are on screen right here. First link in the description down below, going to take you to my free Telegram channel where you get even more analysis from myself and my team around the clock. So if you like this free content on YouTube, you're going to love what's over here. It's actually slightly more advanced, so definitely do check it out. And once you're in that free Telegram channel, you can click on my name at the bottom of any post instead of /gold, which will take you into this window where you can then click on send message, where you can send me a message directly to ask me how to join VIP, and I'll give you all that information right there. I don't want to look at other altcoins right now. I've already looked at the altcoins that I want to look at, and I can't comment on others because I don't really watch them. Cardano, surprisingly, down by quite a bit actually. It did hit that $1 resistance area that I mentioned would probably be problematic for Cardano, and just look at how accurate that analysis was. I literally said this like the day before it happened, that we can probably expect resistance at this blue line, and that's what happened. And it has seen a little bit of a drop from here. Now I actually think Cardano is going to be able to penetrate way higher into this resistance range, and still potentially drop back down. I'm not saying that it would drop that back down, but if it did, it could still punch way higher. But it's just an interesting thing to take note of anyway. What is the shittiest shitcoin in the shitcoin metaverse of shit? XRP. It's XRP because all the other shitcoins, people like, you know, they're generally known, like a lot of, you know, like you look at shit like banana or like just weird ones, you know, like 𝗢𝗡𝗥𝗙𝗓 or whatever. Like people buy them and they're like, yeah, I know it's stupid, but I want to make money. People buy XRP thinking that it's the real deal. That's why it's one of the worst. Ricky wants to know my Ethereum thoughts for the highs for the end of this year. I couldn't say, mate. That's not the kind of analysis I do. It's actually completely pointless, in my opinion, to give analysis like that, because there's absolutely no way of being accurate. Do I check order book strength and weakness? Nope, not at all. It's way too heavily manipulated, and it's super short term. I'm actually going to head off on that note. So if you guys have enjoyed this live stream, then do me a favor and throw up a final like here if you haven't done so already. All that good stuff, you already know the deal. Oh, Bybit, I've got to mention Bybit. You guys already know the deal. This is my favorite exchange. It's the only one I use, and I've been partnered with them for years. So if you want to trade on the same exchange that I use, then check them out with the link in the description down below. They have a lot of tokens on this platform now. Like, there is a lot of tokens on here. It's, in my opinion, in my experience, been super safe. You know, these XRP warriors, they are on it. I mean, you know, you say one bad thing and they're, I mean, your comments are being held, but it's funny to see. It's always the same guys asking me to please explain why I think XRP is a shitcoin. Like, this conversation's been had a million times. I'm not going back into it. You can Google it if you're that curious. But I mean, to me, it should be very obvious. Just its centralized nature alone is enough reason to know it's a shitcoin. Anyway, you know, it's. I mean, I think, you know, like by 2022, if you don't know already, you know, like, you know what I mean, like, something's going wrong there, unless you're totally new to the space. You know, it should be known to you by now. You can trade XRP here on Bybit though, so if that interests you, then you can check it out. Yeah, as I was saying, it has been very, very reliable, in my opinion, very secure, got great liquidity and so on. And it's good to have as a backup, bottom line. You know, if you've already got your accounts on various exchanges, that's totally fine, but there can be downtime, there can be you know, hacks and so on, and to have some insulation from that, you know, by having a few different accounts on different exchanges and so on, can be a very good idea. Whether or not you use Bybit, it's always a good idea to do that, and I think that's a big point that people don't consider until it's too late. So please don't make the mistakes that many have made within the crypto space. You are in the crypto space, you're not in a space which is insured and protected by the government, so it makes even more sense to have backup exchanges with backup wallets and so on. But anyway, that's just my opinion as someone who has been in the space for 5 years. You know, probably nothing important. Anyway, hope you have enjoyed this one, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good day. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you all again. Yeah, bye-bye.